Suddenly, there was a beautiful woman who challenged YEONWO to play a musical instrument. Finally, YEONWO met Mr. Janggong. Will YEONWO be okay? Then the figure of the HYOJO instantly appeared. Is HYOJO going to take YEONWO away?
Then they arrived at Huida's shop and greeted by the employees. Welcome, Mr. Huida.
Then YEONWO said, "Didn't he say it was a small shop?"
Mr. Huida. A woman approached YEONWO and Huida. I was waiting for you, he said.
Then Huida said, "This is Danhee. How are you?"
Let me introduce myself.
Then Huida said, "This is Danhee, the best player here."
Danhee replied, You always give me so much undeserved praise, so I don't know what to do. Danhee saw YEONWO's hand holding Huida's and said, But then, who is that woman?
My lover, Huida said.
Danhee smiled. I understand, a very precious guest is with us. Today, I will serve you more sincerely, said Danhee. Danhee sat down and immediately prepared to entertain Huida and YEONWO. Then he played the gyeojeum.
The Huida employees were very entertained.
Likewise with Huida and YEONWO, they sat together while watching Danhee.
Then Danhee finished playing the gyeojeum style.
Huida stood up and applauded Danhee and said, "As expected, Danhee, your performance was the best."
Then Danhee said, This girl wants to give a better song to Huida, so I just practiced as best I could.
That thought is amazing, said Huida. Then Huida said to Danhee, I will grant you the one thing you want, just tell me what.
Then Danhee replied, This girl did not wish for that. But if you don't mind, I would like to ask her to play a song for me.
Me? YEONWO was very surprised.
Danhee smiled at YEONWO. Then Danhee kept insisting that YEONWO play the tool. I want that woman to play a song for me.
Me? YEONWO is increasingly surprised by Danhee's request.
Then Danhee said, I happened to see that young lady's hand. There were several fists on her pretty fingers. So I asked him if he played a musical instrument like me. As people say, a player must recognize another player. If my prediction is correct, I think his performance will be as good as his performance.
Then Huida asked YEONWO, Do you know how to play?
YEONWO was silent.
Then Huida said, Then went to play it. I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to hear it. You don't have to if you don't want to.
It's sudden, but I'm fine with it, YEONWO said. Then he asked Huida, Then, will you ask me too?
Then Huida replied, Your wish.
Yes, earlier you said you liked the look Danhee, and you will fulfill her wish.
Huida suddenly laughed, Haha, I guess you don't recognize me yet.
YEONWO was silent. And they looked at each other.
Even if you don't play it, I will be grateful to fulfill all your wishes.
YEONWO was very happy and said, Thank you.
Then Danhee looked at YEONWO.
They also looked at each other. Was he just smirking? YEONWO said in his heart. YEONWO started playing gyeojeums. Then he continued to try it in front of Huida and Danhee. Then I will play a song, YEONWO said.
Danhee looked at YEONWO.
So did YEONWO. Then YEONWO thought about the song, the title of the song. Untitled. This song. YEONWO started composing his own songs, but at that moment, YEONWO went into his own mind while fantasizing. That was the first song I wrote, while in the underworld. At that time, YEONWO was sitting in his room while moving his fingers. The lower sky of the windowless room. stuck here because of HYOJO's obsession. When the days of not being able to do anything repeat. While composing the song, then YEONWO looked at the gyeojeum. Then he noticed the tool. And really pay attention to it. That's how the untitled song was created, YEONWO said. Then he took the instrument. YEONWO fell silent and thought of HYOJO. I regret every time I love HYOJO, a song written with my bench feelings towards her. The two of them looked at each other lovingly at that time. In my inevitable life, built with the intention of cutting it off, said YEONWO. Then he woke up from his shadow, untitled. YEONWO started to play the gyeojeum.
Then Dan-hee stared with concern.
YEONWO continued to play it. She was very deep into her performance. HYOJO watches YEONWO.
So did everyone there, including Dan-hee.
YEONWO played it very well.
Dan-hee could only remain silent. Then she clenched her hands very tightly after seeing YEONWO's performance.
And YEONWO continued to play it soulfully. He played it like an expert gyeojeum player. Then YEONWO opened his eyes and he finished playing. Everyone gave YEONWO a round of applause.
Then HYOJO said, "It was a really great performance. This is the most beautiful performance I've ever heard. Because you played such an amazing performance, I also have to keep my promise. So now, what's your wish? It looks like Dan-hee is very disappointed that YEONWO can prove it."
That, when the two of us are alone, I will tell you.
Dan-hee left the place. I don't know what she was feeling at that moment. He ran very quickly out of the room. She closed the door to her room. He looked very weak from what he had witnessed, then said, "Mr. HYOJO." Originally, the seat next to Mr. HYOJO wasn't. Instantly imagined YEONWO and HYOJO, who were very media at that time. Then he said, "That's not for me." Dan-hee was very angry because she felt that her position was very important, was replaced by YEONWO, and because Mr. HYOJO adores YEONWO because of his looks. One of the best performances I've ever heard, it was the most beautiful, and she kept thinking about what HYOJO said to YEONWO. Dan-hee was furious then. Chai YEONWO.
They came out of the room, and HYOJO said, "That's very surprising. Thinking that you can play gyeojeum so beautifully."
Thank you, said YEONWO.
Then HYOJO asked, "Are you also seeing gyeojeum playing on the ground?"
And YEONWO replied, "No, when I was on Earth, I created music professionally. Therefore, I can play a large variety of instruments. There are some other songs that I bust too. Even so, it's been a long time since I played it myself," YEONWO said as he opened his palm.
Then HYOJO asked, "When you perform, I noticed that your little finger was trembling slightly.
Did you happen to injure him? Were you in pain?" Then YEONWO replied, "I hurt her a long time ago. It's hard to do perfectly, but it doesn't hurt."
Then HYOJO said, "What a pity.
What? YEONWO said.
You're playing so beautifully right now, but if you don't get hurt. I want to know how beautiful your game is," said HYOJO.
YEONWO was silent. Then she smiled. "Thank you for saying that."
"Besides, what desire did you say that you would ask of me?" HYOJO said.
And YEONWO replied, That's okay. I would like to ask if we can use a different room," but YEONWO said.
Then HYOJO replied, "Well, do we have to share a room since we are in a contractual relationship?"
The first night was already underway because of me, so I asked to use a separate room for a bit, said YEONWO. Where? What is this place? YEONWO was surprised to see the place.
She took off her shoes, HYOJO explained to YEONWO. "It was sponsored by my clan. It's also my favorite place. The walls are low, so there is a lot of volcanic ash accumulates here. It's therapeutic if you step on this ash with your bare feet. It feels like walking on a cloud. This pleasure is one that can only be experienced here. Would you like to try it too?
No, I'm fine, said YEONWO.
Then Huida said, if you step on it, you'll feel better. You've been restless since you came to the underworld.
In this case, YEONWO also glanced at only a few. Then YEONWO took off his shoes. He began to set his foot on the ashes. It was very soft. Looks like YEONWO likes it.
Then Huida explained, this ash is from the underworld.
Then YEONWO looked up.
It's been a long time since I stepped on it, Huida said. YEONWO stepped on the ashes.
Then YEONWO looked down.
Huida also noticed it.
YEONWO also fell silent. Then Huida lifted her leg, and YEONWO said, please don't. I said stop. Then YEONWO wanted to tease Huida.
YEONWO splashed the ash and almost hit Huida in the face. Madam, for once. My apologies, that's why I told you not to do that. Okay, it's okay. I guess you can't tolerate it, Huida said.
Then YEONWO said, she's pretty. With silly YEONWO teasing Huida. Huida looked at YEONWO, who could laugh freely. Then they sat together and Huida said,
I'm glad you like it. Actually, this is the room your Alan is staying in.
my room? YEONWO said. Then YEONWO said, but shouldn't I share a room with you, Mr. Huida? I'm sure that's what you said earlier.
And Huida replied, about that. I was in the room right next to you, and because there's also a small sampling door that connects the two rooms, it can be said that they are almost shared together. Of course, as you said, I have a pretty face, so.
Then YEONWO laughed.
Because you are afraid of men, there's no way you can comfortably share a room with me. This should be enough to ensure that you don't feel burdened. The house is big, and there are many rooms. So please rest comfortably while you are here, Huida said.
YEONWO smiled and said, thank you.
Then Huida left YEONWO's resting place. Huida walked into a room. Then Huida arrived at her room and opened the door. It turned out that
Mr. Huida, it's Soho. He's come to see Huida.
What's wrong? Said Huida.
Then Soho answered, I've found that person.
Huida was silent. And instantly just silent.
The day passed. After that, they visited Mr. Jang Gong. Suddenly, YEONWO felt scared and remembered that Alan met with HYOJO in that place. Instantly.
YEONWO, you have finally arrived. HYOJO hugged YEONWO from behind. I've been waiting for you.
YEONWO wrinkled her dress as they were about to enter the room.
Then Huida noticed YEONWO, who was worried. He knew what YEONWO was feeling at that moment. Then Huida said, Janggong, it's me, Huida here.
YEONWO could only look down.
Come in, Master Janggong said. Then after that, the door finally opened.
Then YEONWO saw HYOJO behind the door.
HYOJO smiled at YEONWO. YEONWO, said HYOJO.
Mr. Janggong sat very gallantly welcoming Huida and YEONWO.
YEONWO was silent and it turned out that HYOJO wasn't there. YEONWO just hallucinated and always thought of bad things like that.
I see you are Huida's lover, said Mr. Janggong.
Janggong, Lord of the Underworld, said YEONWO, his heart salad.
Then Mr. Janggong said, tell me your name.
It's Chai YEONWO, said YEONWO with a very scared look on his face.
Huida, how long have you been hiding it? Whoever sees this will think I'm trying to hurt you, said Janggong.
YEONWO was silent, and she said in her heart, what's going on? HYOJO's not here. I'm sure she's with Janggong in my last life.
When will I do that again? Said Huida.
And Jang Gong said, "Then, why are you coming now?"
YEONWO paused and looked at Mr. Jang Gong, and YEONWO said, "This time." The look on YEONWO's face began to change. He smiled, then, "I probably won't meet HYOJO in this hit-up."
Then Mr. Jang Gong said to YEONWO, "Well, I just wanted to say hello to you in person. Now that I've seen it, that's all. You must be tired, so go back and rest."
When YEONWO started to walk away from Lord Janggong's room, Huida held Dawn's hand. "Can you wait for a moment? I have something to discuss with Mr. Janggong."
"Yes, I'll wait outside," said YEONWO. Then YEONWO was already outside.
Huida was silent.
Then Jang Gong said, "Beautiful child, please help her adapt well underground."
"Of course," said Huida. Then Huida said, "Then, let's get to the point."
And Jang Gong began to explain the Black Wolf. "You probably know why I'm calling you today."
I saw YEONWO walking outside and said, "I really thought I'd meet HYOJO today. I'm glad I didn't." Then YEONWO sat down. He sat behind a large phone, then he looked up at the night sky. This is the end. Unless Jang Gong calls me again, there's no reason to come here again, then I won't have to run to the HYOJO. Now, it's really over. There was the sound of footsteps from behind. YEONWO fell silent. She imagined that the man had red hair. He approached YEONWO. Then YEONWO was surprised. "Hyo?" When he looked back, it was Huida. Then YEONWO got up from his seat and said, "I'm really okay now. Because I promised myself." With a very stern look on my face. "I won't cry, not anymore because HYOJO," while staring at the door. Nor being afraid.
Huida was silent.
"Then, should we go in now?" YEONWO said.
Then Huida smiled and said, "We should."
Then YEONWO interrupted. "The castle I went to for the first time in a long time was still the same. Internal structure, decoration, location. Even the red wallpaper that HYOJO likes. Everything is the same as before. It's like a series of moments." YEONWO accidentally spoke like that suddenly. Ugh. YEONWO closed her mouth.
"Are you okay? Your skin doesn't look good," said Huida.
Then YEONWO said, "Excuse me, just a moment." He lowered his hand. Then she stared deeply.
Then Huida said, "I promised you that there will be nothing for your brothers and sisters."
YEONWO was silent.
Then Huida and YEONWO left the place. They also several went on the horse-drawn carriage. After a few hours of traveling, they arrived, "We're here." Then, with her attention, Huida escorted YEONWO. "Please go down carefully."
YEONWO was silent while staring at the kingdom.
And Huida said, "This is the master's castle."
Today, YEONWO was right in front of the castle and said, "I'll meet the HYOJO for real." And looked at the building. Imagining HYOJO's torture at that time. YEONWO could only remain silent. And was very afraid.
It was behind a tree, when YEONWO was alone. There came a HYOJO who was walking. Then HYOJO said, "Father, seriously. What she saw in that man, who was no different from anyone else, that made her love him so much."
Seen from behind a tree, YEONWO heard the voice and was very frightened.
HYOJO terms of walking and getting away from YEONWO. YEONWO continued to hear his footsteps and was silent.
Phew! She was so relieved that HYOJO didn't know she was behind the tree.
Suddenly, "Who are you?"
YEONWO was very surprised. She looked back. Then he didn't expect that HYOJO would come to him. YEONWO was shocked and gasped for air. Ugh! While covering her mouth, YEONWO could only remain silent.
Then HYOJO said, "Who are you?" Hiding and watching in an unsettling manner.
YEONWO was really scared, and she said, "That's really you, HYOJO. As I remember you."
HYOJO also looked at YEONWO. Then he stretched out his hand. You look suspicious, said the HYOJO.
What's this? YEONWO said.
And HYOJO said, normally, if I behave in a way that makes you unhappy, you wouldn't let me off so easily.
Then YEONWO said in his heart, while mentally HYOJO, however, I have to get through this as happily as possible. I can't attract attention. YEONWO was surprised when HYOJO pulled his hand closer to him.
Then HYOJO wanted to hug her.
YEONWO was silent looking at HYOJO and he said, What? Let go of me.
HYOJO smiled.
And let go of YEONWO.
Then he said, ha ha ha, I'm sorry. You look so Lucy-like shaking. Little mouse, when you see me.
YEONWO was in pain because his hand was pulled very tight by the HYOJO. YEONWO's hand looked very red.
Then HYOJO said, I can't help but play.
YEONWO looked at her with great annoyance. And YEONWO said, Disgusting. You've always been like that. You never cared about my feelings, just never do what you want. It's all just entertainment for you, isn't it?
Then HYOJO said, this underground world, other people's lives. Even you're pathetic. Love.
Playing jokes like this on strangers, I don't appreciate it, YEONWO said.
And HYOJO said, how dare you? Do you know who you're talking about?
And YEONWO was furious and replied, Me? I'm Lord Huida's woman. Whoever you are, you can't treat me this way. In addition, if you have basic decency and integrity, you wouldn't treat strangers like this.
HYOJO smiled and said,
Huida woman, huh? How brave, he found a woman like himself. But that guy Huida must be having fun. I think the rumors about ghosts are true, but unfortunately it wasn't. What's your name? YEONWO paused and then said,
YEONWO is my name.
YEONWO. That's a good name, said HYOJO.
Serene was seen standing in front of the door and looking up at the night sky. Miss, said Serene. Then Serene was surprised. Suddenly she saw HYOJO also coming out of the same place as YEONWO. HYOJO? Then Serene looked down, and HYOJO didn't see him. That way, Serene followed YEONWO.
And YEONWO said, Please leave me alone for a moment. I want to rest in peace.
That's the path the lady traveled, Serene said.
HYOJO smiled.
Then Serene felt very tired while following YEONWO. Miss? Miss? Where are you, Miss? Serene kept shouting for YEONWO. She kept looking for YEONWO. Miss? Serene was suddenly surprised to see that YEONWO had fallen. Miss?
Then YEONWO said, Oh Serene. Sorry, my legs gave out.
Then Serene asked, Miss, what happened to you?
And YEONWO replied, Serene, I'm sorry, but is it okay if I go home first?
Yes, miss. Go ahead, said Serene. They also several home. Not long after, Serene opened Dan's door. Mr. Huida, have you arrived? That woman, she just fell asleep, said Serene.
I see. Very good. So what really happened? Said Huida.
Then Serene explained, it happened when Madam was alone. I also don't know the details. She looked terrified as if she had seen something scary.
Then Huida said, scared. There was no sign of it when she talked to Mr. Janggong.
Then Serene said, and there's one more thing I should mention. Before the lady left the sponsor's place, Mr. HYOJO came out from the same place.
Huida looked very upset. HYOJO. A few hours later, Huida met Mr. Janggong. Black Wolf, this way.
Then the Lord interrupted him and said, I am always grateful to your brothers. It's thanks to you that this place can be so peaceful. Suddenly, Mr. Janggong closed his mouth because the cough was so loud.
Then Huida got up and went to him. Mr. Janggong. Are you okay?
Then Mr. Jangong replied, "Don't worry, I'm fine. It's only natural as I get older. My body is gradually not listening to me. Maybe it's time to pass on my position."
Then Huida said, "Please don't say things like that. Aren't you still healthy and strong?"
And Mr. Jangong said, "Ah, it seems you don't have much faith in HYOJO. Even me, his father, feel the same way."
"What's more important is that you know it well," Huida said. Then Huida said in her heart, "This fake family gang will end someday." Huida was silent and hallucinating. HYOJO will soon realize that we are not really related by blood. As you said when that day came, when HYOJO becomes the master of this place, he will discover our secret, said Huida.
Yes, you are right. I was too complacent. Then Mr. Jangong changed the subject. By the way, about that child, YEONWO. While imagining YEONWO's figure. Is she the woman you are looking for?
I'm not sure yet, said Huida.
While thinking, Mr. Jangong said, I see.
Huida suddenly interrupted the conversation, but Huida was silent. I hope he is the one I've been searching for. The day had passed, their conversation had ended just like that. Seen Huida and YEONWO enjoying a warm drink together.
YEONWO looked at the drink. Then he said, I'm sorry about yesterday.
What? Huida said.
Then YEONWO explained, I said I would wait, but I left without a word. That seems to bother me.
That's right, it's nothing, so don't worry about it, Huida said.
Then YEONWO answered, thank you for understanding.
Huida looked at YEONWO and said ... But, is it okay if I ask what happened? You haven't looked well since yesterday.
YEONWO looks very sad. Then he said in his heart, it's just that. How much? Should I tell this person?
Huida was silent and waited for YEONWO's answer.
Then YEONWO said, actually, this is my third life. While imagining yesterday's events. In my 2 previous lives, HYOJO was my husband, and I had a difficult time. This time will be different. And that it will be alright even if I face it. That's what I've been telling myself. But that time I saw her again. I still feel myself trembling in fear and shattered. I feel so pathetic. YEONWO was silent, then continued her speech. There's nothing wrong. I think I'm just a little tired.
Huida was silent and said, I understand. Just relax today.
A few hours later, YEONWO went into her room and met Sareem.
My lady, I have finished preparing the bathroom. I'll wait outside.
Yes, thank you, Sareem, said YEONWO. Then YEONWO walked away from Sareem and hurried to take a shower. Then YEONWO was silent for a moment in the bathroom and said, it must have looked suspicious. I would probably feel the same way. But instead of doubting me, Huida caught him talking to himself behind the bathroom curtain.
Suddenly, looks like you're really worried. I want to know about my true feelings, said Huida.
Then YEONWO explained, at first, I just thought of you as an ordinary man. But as we spent more time together, I experienced it firsthand, you're affectionate. While imagining Huida's treatment to him. Sensitive. And you treat me with sincerity.
Since yesterday you haven't looked well, Huida said.
But YEONWO has always been very hesitant. When he was about to tell Huida, he looked down and said in his heart. Staring into those eyes, I found myself wanting to tell her everything without realize it. However, can I really believe it? I have stated it clearly.
I will not accept money from him, said Huida. Huida was interrupted the conversation, then YEONWO was very surprised. Without realizing it, they were chatting in the bathroom when YEONWO saw Huida. Huida is already preparing to clean herself.
Huida him, YEONWO looked away.
Then Huida said, my lover.
I'm sorry. I'll be leaving soon. Yenwoo said, but Huida held out her hand as if Yenwoo should stay with her.
Then Huida took Yeonwoo's hand.
Huida him, said Yenwoo,